We can't be blind to the fact that there is financial manipulation within the system. The US, I believe, is close to $40 trillion in debt. That is an issue that's not just going to go away. Today, my co-host Kayla and I are exploring the world that we are living in, specifically the threats that are shaping our future.
There's a difference between misinformation and disinformation. So misinformation is like accidentally sharing the wrong information. There's no malintent behind it. But disinformation is the intentional spread of false information. Later in this episode, we're actually going to give you a framework to work your way through what's real and what's not. So stay tuned for that.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Creators for Change podcast. Today, my co-host Kayla and I are exploring the world that we are living in, specifically the threats that are shaping our future. As you know, our podcast episodes feature change makers who are creating solutions for some of the biggest problems of our time. And so what Kayla and I started to do was we started to put together a list of both domestic and global problems. And when we saw the list, we're just like, wow, we need to share this with our guests. This is not meant to be fear-based. This is meant to be reflective and solutions-focused. So let this list inspire you to make that change that you wish to see in the world as well.
Yeah, perfectly said. So here at Creators for Change, every guest that we bring on, their journey started with being aware of the problem. So today we want to talk about those problems, what's actually at stake, and what we can still change. So we're going to briefly go through what we see as threats, and we don't mean to debate or take sides. This is meant to be a nonpartisan discussion to just bring awareness to the different issues we're facing. And we know that everybody has different opinions on what's important, so this is our list, but we'd love to hear from you down in the comments what issues you think are the most important. So let's dive right in. We're going to start with domestic threats to U.S. democracy and the U.S. thriving. And we'll start with the systemic and institutional issues.
So the first problem that we want to bring to your attention is corrupt governments and political polarization. And so what this leads to is when we have this in our democracy, it weakens institutions, erodes trust, and prevents action on all other issues. And so we want to remind you that with an issue like this, one of the best things you could do is to use your voice. So as we're filming this is election day, so it's going to be posted later, but one way that we can combat this is just by voting, using our voice, because the power still lies within the people. Kayla, what do you have to mention about corrupt government and political polarization?
Yeah, like you're saying, the power belongs to the people, and the best way to fight back against a corrupt government, I guess, is to actively participate in your democracy.
Absolutely. Use the voice that you have and participate. Another issue that we want to bring to your attention is economic inequality. So it's a fact that wealth in our country is concentrated where a small percentage of our population owns most of the wealth. And while we do have a free market here in the US and there's a lot of pros to capitalism, it's important as well just to keep an eye out when policy is manipulated, or when the media and the markets are manipulated, and when that doesn't serve the common good. Here at Creators for Change, we are all for a government system as long as it's conscious. So what that means is doing what's best for the greater good, not a small percentage of people who are acting from a place of short-term profit and selfish greed.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. Like we're seeing right now, like the top 1% has like 50% of the wealth in this country, and that allows them to just basically control everything. Like, I'm pretty sure either Jeff Bezos or one of the billionaires like owns also like different media outlets. Like, that's why it's also super important to, like, when you're searching the internet and whatnot, know what is funding what you're looking at.
Exactly. And that leads us into our next big issue in our democracy is just disinformation and unethical leadership as a whole. This doesn't always just mean the people at the top. We're also talking about amongst our citizens, the leaders in our communities, the leaders in our school systems, in our local governments, and spreading misinformation, especially when this includes leaders who act outside the Constitution, who spread lies or enable violence. Our advice is when you are seeking out information to do your due diligence and ask yourself, is this information that I'm being given true, or is it taken out of context? Is it AI generated or manipulated? Kayla, I know you have a lot to say about this, being a science communicator and just studying so much about media literacy. What do you have to add on?
Yeah, for sure. Disinformation. So, something that is interesting to think about is that there's a difference between misinformation and disinformation. So, misinformation is like accidentally sharing the wrong information, there's no malintent behind it, but disinformation is the intentional spread of false information for ulterior motives, which I got a master's in science communication, specifically focusing on climate. So you can imagine that within that realm, there's been a lot of intentional disinformation spread around by like big oil and stuff. So later in this episode, we're actually going to give you a framework to kind of work your way through what's real and what's not. So stay tuned for that. Our next threat that we wanted to bring to light is the education system. Obviously, in the US, things are pretty antiquated. I'm pretty sure like the systems that we use in most public schools were developed in like the 1950s or 60s. I'm gonna have to fact check that later, but I know that the borderline baseline systems that we use are very, very old, whereas like in different countries like Denmark and more progressive thinking countries, there's been a lot of reform to the education systems. So what do you have to say about that, Ari?
Yeah, there's a lot I have to add to that. So, speaking from personal experience, I remember going through the school system, specifically K through 12, and my natural creativity and entrepreneurial spirit wasn't encouraged. In fact, it was shut down by teachers and the curriculum. And so I believe that having an education system that allows us to exercise not just creativity but emotional intelligence, how to think outside the box rather than just regurgitate information and follow facts, can create for a much better future. So I could keep talking on forever and ever about this. We'll probably need to have a whole other episode with someone in the education space. But it wasn't until I was in university where that started to really be encouraged and brought out. But you have to seek opportunities. But I believe that from a young age, we should learn about these things so that we can be better citizens overall and be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's move on to the next issue. Big bank schemes and national debts, and also just threats to our social security. This one is huge. Again, for all of these, either we have an episode on it or we plan to have an episode coming up soon. But many of you know that the US, I believe, is close to $40 trillion in debt. That is an issue that's not just going to go away, and that does affect working class citizens and our taxes. And right now we have a lot of, mainly the boomer generation, living in fear because of their Social Security, their 401k plans. And we can't be blind to the fact that there is financial manipulation within the system, there's deregulation, and fiscal irresponsibility that threatens the middle class and these future safety nets.
Yeah, this is like a really complex topic because like I feel like they don't really teach you about it unless you're going into economics at a university, but it's really hard to wrap your head around, but it's something that you should educate yourself on, especially as we're already in the age of cryptocurrency and what that's going to do with the US dollar, and like there's just so much to be said here, so I am really excited to get someone on the podcast who's an expert who can explain it to us.
Yes, but just for now, what I'll say to the audience is for this one, because again, we don't mean to invoke fear. We want you to listen to this podcast and be inspired. For an issue like this, it does take having some personal initiative, reading books, and listening to podcasts. So I do highly recommend the Bitcoin Standard, and I can't pronounce the author who wrote it, but if you look up Bitcoin Standard, it's Seyfedin Amis, I think I said that right, is his name. And also the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is really great, and he also has many books on the topic and an amazing podcast. So I would point our viewers in that direction from here on, because everyone could do something on a personal level to combat this.
Yeah, to protect your futures and not be a victim to the system if it comes to that. Another issue that ties in with money is an economy is the free market that we live in, that we have with capitalism. In a perfect world, a free market would be amazing. We could all have great opportunities to build a foundation, to build businesses, but there aren't very many regulations, and the result of that is that there are a lot of injustices that happen within the supply chain. Do you have anything to say about that?
I have a lot to say about this one, so I'll say the name of it again: Free Market Without Values. Trust me, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm all for the free market. But when it's done consciously, there's a great book called Conscious Capitalism by John McKay, where he talks about how, we just need to bring back this spirit of business that not just has profit at the forefront, but also has people. Also, watch the movie Lion. It's about a boy in India who gets lost, and he's lost in India, big country, he doesn't know where his mom is, little boy. And in several instances throughout the movie, these predators try to kidnap him. Why? Because there's a form of human trafficking that takes children, and who do they work for? Big companies that, I won't say any specific companies, but big companies who utilize children. And so I don't care like how much. I would rather pay more for an iPhone that wasn't made by kidnapped children or children being mistreated. And so again, I'm all for the free market, but I believe there should be a layer that preserves our morals, both for people and the environment. Otherwise, human species isn't meant, we're not on track to survive and thrive for hundreds of thousands of more years if we're ruining the environment and its people. We might survive for a few hundred, but we're not going to thrive for thousands. That actually leads us into the next issue: energy dependency and infrastructure. So, Kayla, I know you have a lot to say about this one because you have a background in science communication and you have a passion for climate change. So I'm going to pass the mic on to you to hear what you have to say about this one and sustainability.
Yeah, I mean the energy issue is such a big one, especially with the rise of AI data centers being built all over the world. I heard an AI CEO the other day say that one day the world is just going to be completely covered in data centers, which is like scary. But while that's like a super exaggeration of what the future is going to look like, there's going to be a lot higher need for energy with AI. So that's why we need to push for more sustainable and resilient systems that aren't non-renewable resources like fossil fuels, coal, and natural gas. We need a bigger push towards solar, wind, and nuclear. Nuclear is a big topic now because a lot of people are saying like that's the only energy that's going to be able to provide all of the energy that we're going to need going forward. But it's a really, really interesting topic. And again, I really look forward to having someone on that is an expert in that and can share a little bit more about the industry and what's happening within it.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Let's transition on to human and social issues, still speaking on the domestic level. So, big one right now is healthcare inequality. So, right now, there's millions that lack access, and even those who have access, there is a lot of uh, news stations and experts who forewarn that by next year, those who have healthcare, the premiums are going to skyrocket. And so this is a problem because we have not just the general, like, don't think of just like working class people, think of like children, think of people in need who aren't getting the proper medications or nutrients that they need for their physical and mental health. That's a problem, and something needs to be done about that.
Yeah, and that ties into our next topic, which is the bad food systems, the lack of healthy foods, lack of affordable healthy foods, and food scarcity in a lot of different areas. So, again, millions lack access to affordable, healthy foods. Like, there are food droughts in a lot of areas. Like, I don't know if you've ever driven through like a rural area out west, but the only grocery stores that they have are like Dollar Trees, which is kind of crazy. Like, I don't think you can get fresh vegetables at a Dollar Tree, you know. Um, but there's a whole. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, which has really focused on getting rid of ultra processed food and bringing awareness to what's in the ingredients of different foods that you get at the store. So combine that with the food insecurity that we see in a lot of areas. There's a lot of illness. That's why the US is one of the most unhealthy countries, and heart disease is so high, diabetes rates are so high. So that's expensive for the country too, for all these people to be sick, and then all these people also have to pay for all of these medications to manage their illnesses. So it's a very convoluted issue, but
Yeah, we
again,
actually had Abby Roberts on from Fork Diet Culture where she dove deeper into this topic. So we encourage you to check out that episode from someone who spends a lot of time in this field studying. The next issue that we want to bring to your attention is guns, gang violence, and crime. Now, we at Creators for Change don't see this so much black and white, so much Democrat or Republican, because I'm sure both sides can agree that this is a problem. This year in the US, we had more gun shootings than days in the year. Last time I checked, it was, I believe, 370 mass shootings in the US, many of those being school shootings. And so we've also had an assassination of a political figure, Charlie Kirk. And so, regardless, we believe that, okay, this is something that's happening, mass shootings, ego based gun violence. And so, this is destroying communities, it's destroying families and individuals, and mental health overall.
yeah, it's definitely an issue that has a lot of very strong opinions on either side. So something that we're really trying to do is to really take into account all the different sides of an issue. Like, we totally understand why people feel the need to have guns, but we also realize that that need is born of other people having guns and the lack of regulations when it comes to having guns. So this issue in particular is something that definitely needs to be discussed. And like you said, like, there have been 370 shootings this year in the US. Like, that's insane. It's November 5th or November 4th. It's November 4th today. Like, we've still got almost 2 months left in the year, and there's already more shootings than days in the year. That's insane. So like I think everybody wants to see change regarding this issue, but it's a matter of what kind of change we can achieve together.
Yes, absolutely. Next issue is sexual abuse, domestic violence, and human trafficking. This is the one that really gets under my skin the most, so I'll try to keep this brief. But we actually have an episode with Perry Power who talks more about sexual abuse and how you can handle that within and work to break the silence. So, take it from someone who grew up in a domestic violent household and who was also sexually abused. This needs to be something that people are aware of that it's happening, and also there needs to be, I believe, direction for people, like resources for them. It happens far too often. The statistics are off the charts. I found one stat that said 1 out of every 4 children in the US are survivors. 1 in 4 of domestic violence or sexual abuse. That's a lot. I also had a friend in high school who was attempted 3 times to get kidnapped. So I believe that just creating awareness among these children is what's going to protect them. Too many people hold back the facts because they think, oh, like, we shouldn't tell kids about sexual abuse and kidnapping. That's, they're not mature enough. Like, they're not ready. No, ignorance is not bliss. That's what I believe. Ignorance is not bliss. And yeah, that's what I'll say about it. I could go on.
Yeah, for sure. And it's also a matter of reframing like the way that people look at the treatment of women. And I mean, obviously it's not just women, but like ever since I was in high school, like literally 15 years old, I became aware that like certain people will just look at a person's outfit and say, oh, that person deserves whatever comes to them, And that's not fair at all. That's not right. So that's just, yeah. There needs to be a greater discussion about how we look at our neighbors.
Speaking of neighbors, let's talk about the next issue: immigration and border mismanagement. This one obviously is controversial. Some people look at this issue one way, some people look at it the other way without looking at the full picture. The way we see the full picture is that almost everyone, their ancestor came from an immigrant, and that's what makes this country so unique, so strong. And so we do know, however, that the border does need to have proper management. We shouldn't just open up all borders and let everyone flood in. No, there should be a proper process for getting residency, getting citizenship. But I want you to know that all 4 of my grandparents were immigrants, very good people, and I mean, look at me. I'm doing pretty well in this country. I'm contributing to my community. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm just saying, it's easy to judge and to complain, but it takes a whole other level to have compassion and see the possibilities.
Definitely, definitely. And a lot of people like to speak about how the immigrants coming into this country are all bad people. Like, that's just not true at all. Like, yes, there are some people that are criminals that come to this country, but there are also a lot of people coming to this country that aren't criminals, they might even be escaping criminals. I just read a book called American Dirt by Janine Cummins, and it was a beautiful story about a family going through gang violence in Mexico. And yeah, I highly recommend reading it because like maybe it was fiction, but it allows you to put yourself in the shoes of someone different than you. And I think that's what we all need to be doing right now in terms of immigration, and especially how it's going on in the country right now.
Okay.
So another issue that we're seeing is, especially our generation, is home ownership decline, because housing affordability has just gone off the charts. It's so expensive to own a home. Minimum wage has not changed, whereas home prices have changed. Renting is so expensive, it's hard to save up for it. And it's a very central topic and to the American dream. So this is definitely something that I hope can change in the future. Do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, so this is the problem that's preventing our generation, Gen Z, from having children because food is so expensive, because housing is so expensive. And so this is essential for our population overall. And right now, biologically speaking, our bodies are best primed right now to have children. Waiting until we're 40 and hoping that the problem solves could actually lead to more health issues within our children. So it's something that we need to seriously look at and work to solve so that, again, we don't just survive for hundreds of years, but we thrive for thousands of more years to come. With that being said, we want to take a step back from domestic issues and take note of the global threats to our peace and just the human condition on that global level. So let's start with some systemic and geopolitical issues. First one we have on this list is war, especially nuclear escalation. So do your own research, but this especially applies to the tensions between the US, Russia, China, and even the Middle East's instability. So, harsh reality, one mistake could end civilization. So, very important that we have strong leaders in our government who are working to have the right conversations and make the right decisions for the common good of our population.
Yeah, I mean, so much more could be said, but we're keeping this brief. But it does tie into our next issue, which is corrupt governments and dictatorships that we are seeing across the world. Um, these kinds of leaders don't have the common good at heart, and it enables human rights abuses. It leads to more wars and the erosion of freedom globally. Because if there is war in a certain area, like you can't go there, you know. And I don't know. It just the more tension, the less stability, and we need to or practice our democratic rights to participate in our government and vote for people who are actually going to do a good job.
Yes, so get educated, check your ballot, go out there and do it because that's the most we could do. We don't want our tax dollars to be supporting these systems and practices on a bigger scale. But moving on to the collapse of the US dollar and just overall global economic order. So, again, Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about this, the most up to date things on his podcast, The Rich Dad Radio Show. So, that's a really good resource for you to check out. But this is a real thing. So, in a nutshell, what's happening is the US dollar is losing purchasing power. And so, a lot of other governments back their country's dollar by the US dollar. And we keep printing it, and the more you print, the more value it loses. And this isn't, we put this underneath the globalist because this can cause the house of cards to tumble. This could trigger a depression, it could trigger global unrest. So, backing the dollar by tangible assets like gold, silver, or digital reserves like Bitcoin could restore stability. This is something that you could do on a personal level, instead of saving. This isn't financial advice, but what many are doing, instead of saving dollars, they're converting their dollars into gold, silver, and digital reserves that are increasing in value. So, yeah, I could keep talking on about this one, but I will let you do your research, and hopefully we can have an expert on in the future to talk more about this. And by the way, if anyone knows of any experts about that could talk about any of these issues that we're mentioning, we're going to put a link down below to an application form to be on the podcast because we would absolutely love to have experts speak more on these subjects.
Yeah, so our next issue that we wrote down is that of global inequality and evil capitalism, which is basically the free market without regulations, like we kind of spoke about earlier. Um, yeah, just basically corporate greed without ethics drives environmental destruction and suffering, plain and simple. So there's this massive inequality that has been perpetuated through this, and it's something that needs addressing sooner rather than
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, we covered that one. We also covered energy scarcity that applies both to the domestic level and the global level. Let's
Mm.
transition on to human and social issues on the global level. We did already talk about human trafficking and exploitive industries, and this needs, well, the way we see it, this needs global criminalization because, and also trade restrictions because this is just something that's inhumane. And if we are truly, it sounds kind of broad and grandiose, but if we truly want world peace, having this happening where children who don't want to do it are being taken advantage of, that's a huge issue that we need to look into. Uh,
Yeah, and yeah, it's a matter of accountability because I mean, just think about the Epstein files, like, and all of the covering up that's gone. Like, it's been in discussion to release them since like April maybe, and and they're still not released because people at the top of the US government are 100% without a doubt listed in those files as criminals that were partaking in child trafficking. So I mean, I think hopefully they'll be released soon, and that'll set a precedent where we can actually hold people accountable regardless of their status in life. Because if we can't hold people accountable for doing awful, awful things like that, like, what are we doing?
yeah, and again, the goal is to create a world where we're not just surviving, but thriving for thousands of more years. Even having the fear of traveling and seeing our beautiful world is a threat. And that's what was happening in that situation. Young girls were being taken, brought to an island, and exploited. And that's just not okay. Across all, no matter your religion, it's in your holy book that that's not okay. And we know that. We know that goes against our moral principles, and that needs to be put to an end.
Hmm.
Moving on to pandemics. So this is both natural pandemics and engineered viruses. So COVID showed how unprepared the world is when a pandemic can arise. And so what we were actually discussing, Kayla and I, is that that outbreak could have been far more deadlier. It was bad as it was, but it could have been way worse. I watch a lot of zombie apocalypse movies, so like I'm thinking of that. That's extreme, but
Oh.
regardless, this is seriously, this is something that can threaten our civilization. Is just one bad outbreak that can cause the house of cards to tumble. That's how I see it. This delicate house of cards, one of these issues, nuclear war, pandemics, the environment, could just cause it all to fall down.
Hmm.
That's the way I
Yeah,
see
and
it. What do
another
you have to
thing
say
with
about
pandemics and public health is like we'll talk more about this later, but climate change, the warming of the climate is making is changing disease vectors. And what I mean by that is like different viruses, different bacteria thrive in different temperatures, but as the climate is warming, we're seeing different diseases like malaria and different mosquito-borne illnesses they're being regularly seen in people farther north than they have been historically. So like malaria was never an issue in the US, but in recent years we've seen a lot more people getting it. And even personally, I got West Nile virus this year from a mosquito bite, which I don't know, I'm not as familiar with the disease vector there and where it was most commonly found, but I'm gonna tell you, it wasn't fun. So yeah, we'll talk more about climate change in a bit, but it's just something to think about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And everyone, one thing that really inspires me with these topics, like, yeah, you can hear about the facts, you can get information, but watch movies on some of this. I mean, I know that I mentioned zombie movies and that's kind of extreme, but just seeing like how a pandemic outbreak could affect civilization and us being in survival mode is really wakes you up. We talked about human trafficking, and I mentioned the movie Lion, just to give you an idea. For the next issue, artificial intelligence, watch the movie The Terminator. And again, I know these are fictional, but it kind of helps you to visualize where we could actually head because AI without regulation could destabilize our economy. It can cause a direct threat to human life. I mean, those are the extremes, but we're already seeing now that it's spreading misinformation and it's causing people to question what's true and what's not because you can even generate fake videos, fake images. I saw a video the other day, and again, we don't know if this is a real video. I just saw a video of the president saying, oh, if there's a video out there of me saying something that I wasn't supposed to, you just blame AI. Even if he didn't actually say that and that was made by AI, that's kind of what people are doing. They just think they could do whatever and, oh, that was AI. That wasn't really me. So,
Yeah.
something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what's that movie called? Everybody needs to watch the movie. It's on Amazon Prime. It's got Steve Carell, and it's about all the big CEOs in AI tech. They go together one weekend. One of them has a deep fake technology, and one of them has a technology that can identify AI. Like, I'm thinking it's probably like some kind of plug-in. But yeah, everybody should watch that movie because I think that is where we're actually getting really close to.
Is it called
Um,
Mountainhead?
Probably.
Okay. Okay, moving on to some final issues globally. This ties into environmental and existential issues. So, Kayla and I talked a lot about climate change, we talked about food. Water quality is a big one. We actually had Seth Maxwell from the Thirst Project come on as a guest and speak about that one, so check out that episode. Is there anything else, Kayla, that we can talk about when it comes to climate change and just ecological collapse?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that you can say there. It's, in my opinion, this is like the largest global threat, unless for whatever reason there's like nuclear war, that would be more immediate. But climate change, at the rate that it's going, we've already reached the first tipping point, which is a point within the climate and different ecological systems across the world that we can't recover from, and that's with the coral reefs. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the news about how so many of the coral reefs are just dying and they're not going to come back. Um, but yeah, if we continue the way that we are, we're going to be passing more tipping points in different kinds of systems that regulate clean water, clean air, food. Like, there's just so much that goes into it. I could talk for a whole year about it, but I won't. But it's, unless something is done about it, it's a slow but certain global killer.
Yeah, it is, and I was gonna say, yeah, that ties in perfectly with our other next point of a big threat is animal cruelty and biodiversity loss. This isn't some, oh no, the pretty elephants and birds are gonna go away, but we're gonna be fine. No, the ecosystem is tied together. In other words, there's a domino effect. So if one species leaves, it affects the whole ecosystem because the ecosystem, they work together. There is, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a symbiosis, a symbiotic relationship between species, and so I am a marine biology major. That's what I studied in college, and we even learned how the overfishing of certain fish species can affect everything else. It's like a domino effect, like I was saying. So the coral reefs, we don't have coral reefs, we get storms that are worse. We get, like we don't have as much carbon being absorbed from the atmosphere that increases temperatures. This isn't a debate of politics. This is science. These are facts. So,
Mm.
which is what we encourage you to look at when you're researching this, is actual stuff from scientists who dedicate their life to understanding this, not politicians who don't try to understand this. They just try to misinform to achieve their ways and
Mm.
to get into higher leadership positions.
Yep. It's all about the money.
Yeah, which has to change. It's not
Um,
all about the money.
right. So our next topic is going to be cosmic and geological events, which is low probability but would have a very high impact.
Think of a
Maybe,
big comet.
huh?
Think of like a big comet coming to Earth or a big volcano erupting.
Have you seen the movie Don't Look Up?
No, but
You've never seen
what?
Don't Look Up?
I haven't.
Oh my god, you need to. It's so good. What? You gotta watch that. Put it on your homework to-do
All
list.
right, on my list.
Um,
What about that movie do you want to mention?
well, I don't want to spoil it, but basically the whole world knows that there's a comet, or there's a, yeah, comet? No, a meteor coming, and it's gonna strike the Earth, and it's gonna have catastrophic results, and like the government is trying to turn it into something they can profit off of. And yeah, that's all I'll say.
Wow. We're gonna end this on an interesting, kind of funny one, but anything's possible. Extraterrestrial intelligence and aliens. Ooh. No, but seriously, like, I don't think that we should be naive to believe that we are the only living conscious beings in our universe. If you look at a map of the sky, like, there's billions of stars, billions of galaxies, and so it's something we should be aware of. And it is something that raises questions about humanity's place in the universe. So I believe that this is something that we should be aware of. Like, it's it's one of those things that seems like, oh, that'll never happen, but that doesn't mean it won't. And will that threaten our global peace? It could.
Probably.
Maybe they'll come in peace. Who knows? Hopefully they come in peace, but then they could say they come in peace, but then they don't come in peace. So even
Hmm.
like the way I see it, what I would hope is, right now there's a lot of division between countries, even within countries. But I'm hoping if an alien were to come, we could all join forces as humans and be like, oh yeah, wait, we're all human. Like, the color of our skin doesn't matter. I hope it doesn't take aliens to come until we get to that point, but
Right, yeah.
I'm
That's
just
so
saying.
funny. I'm pretty sure, like, in the last year, like, NASA released some documents of proof of life outside of Earth.
Hmm.
I mean, I just saw something on social media about it, like, months and months ago, but everybody was like, it was like when something crazy was going on, so nobody paid attention to that. Isn't that like absolutely insane? Like everything that's gone on in the past year, like within this country, is so crazy that like actual proof that aliens exist wasn't mainstream.
Yeah, we definitely live in a world of over information and people just being bombarded. So, Kayla, let's share with our listeners the think framework. So, we gave you a lot to think about in this episode, and we don't just want to tell you what to think, we want to show you how to think, and we want to show you how to evaluate information and stay grounded online, especially now in this noisy world. So we created the Think framework. It's a simple decision-making tool. And so Think is an acronym. Each letter stands for something. Kayla, do you want to take it away on what each letter stands for and what it means?
Yeah, for sure. So, think, like you just said, is like a decision-making tool. It's going to help you navigate what's real versus what's clickbait, you know. Let's just start off with T, which is traceable. Can you trace the source or the data of a claim that you see online? If you can't see where it started, then that's a red flag. For H, we have honest. Is the creator or outlet being transparent about bias or motive? Everyone has a lens that they're looking through, and it's important that you know where they're coming from, why they're sharing a specific piece of information. I is for informed. The question you want to ask here is, do they have the expertise or lived experience to speak on this? Confidence is not the same thing as credibility. That's really important to keep in mind. N is going to be nuanced. Is this acknowledging complexity, or is it oversimplifying a topic just to go viral? Because in most cases, the truth rarely fits into a 30-second or 1-minute video. And lastly is K, which is keeps you thinking. Does it expand your perspective or just confirm what you already believe? Growth comes from curiosity, not comfort, so it's really important to be able to identify your own confirmation bias.
That's a great framework. We'll be making little printouts of it. We'll probably put it on our website so you can screenshot it and always keep it handy. And the last thing I want to leave viewers with is, again, we started this episode with saying that we're making you aware of all the issues domestically and globally so that you can be inspired to choose something and be a creator for change. Make that change that you wish to see in the world. And so some of you might be sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many issues. I'm so overwhelmed. What do I pick? Not to worry, because we are actually walking and talking embodiments that you don't have to just pick one. We welcome you to do something like this, or maybe you write a blog or you make a brand that really encapsulates everything, brings people awareness. So I just want to mention that as well. Don't think you have to pick one. There are creative ways to think outside the box. But I created this framework to help people find what that changes that they wish to see in the world if they don't know. So it's called Explore, Discover, Create. If you don't know what you want to do, start by exploring. This is the most exciting phase. Don't go out there thinking, oh, I don't know what I want to do and that's bad. Don't be discouraged. Be encouraged in this phase. Be excited, because exploration should be fun. When I was in college, that's what I did. I knew I was in my explore phase, and so I joined different things. I put myself out there. I read different books. College was crazy. I was doing scuba diving. I traveled. I studied abroad. I talked to different people, read so many books. I joined TEDx to learn about marketing and branding. List goes on. I took so many different types of classes. It was fun. And, I allowed myself to be creative and just curious. Just be curious. The second phase, discover. Once you put yourself out there, when you find that thing that you know you want to do, Steve Jobs said it best, with all matters of the heart, you will know when you found it. And so when you know what that thing is, and you're like, yes, I want to tackle the water crisis or the food crisis or clean energy, whatever it is, that is when you step into your creator mode. Remember that we are creators for change, and from there you can start creating a network, start creating a project or a plan. You don't have to start small. Don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders. Get people to help you out, because when you're coming from a place of wanting to do good, God, universe, whatever you believe in, maybe it's karma, good karma, has a way of lifting you up and supporting you. So throughout our podcast, Creators for Change, we have so many examples and stories of leaders who really tap into storytelling and activism and science communication to inspire that change. So our question that we want to leave you with is, what do you want to be a part of? What is the change that you wish to see in the world? And you don't have to have the answer to it, but let that be your North Star as you're exploring and discovering and creating. So Kayla, do you have anything that you want to share with our audience before wrapping up this episode?
Yeah, like the question of like what story do you want to be a part of just like reminds me like we all have free will. You know, we can literally do whatever we want. Where there's a will, there's a way. And yeah, just if there's something that you feel really strongly about, like why shouldn't you go and try and contribute to positive change within that area, you know? So everybody's able to do it. It just like even if you like have no time and you want to bring awareness to an issue, like you can just repost something to your story that talks about it instead of having to make a video yourself and that kind of thing. So yeah, we've all got free will and we can all make the change that we want to see. It's just a matter of going out there and doing it.
Yeah, and all these little actions create a big ripple effect. So just remember that. We're all in a pond, all creating little ripples. So if you go out there and you repost something and it inspires one other person, it's like sending off that domino effect, that ripple effect. And you don't need a huge platform. If you choose to use tools like social media for good, you don't need to have a huge platform. Just start showing up, start using your voice, and the right opportunities will start to come to you.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Kayla, you want to end with a final closing happy sticky quote?
Yeah, so my happy sticky of the week is gonna be the small act of thinking critically in a world that rewards reaction is a radical form of hope.
I love it. My happy sticky would be punch fear and perfectionism in the face and just get out there and do it.
Woo!
Awesome. We thank everyone for listening to this. If you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube because it helps us to spread the word with what we're doing and to reach more people. It goes a really long way. And also leave a review on Spotify and Apple so that, again, the algorithm can push us out to more people, help spread this powerful word. And follow us on Instagram too. Share our content, read through it to get informed, to be a good citizen, and to continue to be inspired about being a creator for change.
And if you are a creator for change, or if you know of a creator for change that you think would be great on the podcast, please apply to come on. We'll put the link below.
Yes, we would love to have you. Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you for the next episode.